where it's not a conscious ghost that is actually there. It's almost a repeat in time. It's just a replay of an event that happened. And for whatever reason, this energy gets activated. Some people can pick that up and actually see it, or maybe even hear things. In Gettysburg, that's hugely popular for being reported, where people will hear gunshots. They'll hear the sound of even horses whinnying or running towards them. They'll see these figures that repeatedly kind of do the same thing. So it could be something like that. There could be a physical ghost there that is conscious and just walks through there. We find in areas with a lot of Native American spirits around, people will. They're kind of an interesting bunch. I think they're just so ingrained in the land that quite often, if you find like one Native American ghost, there's quite often many, and this was their property before anything was built on it. So there seem to be these pockets of areas where you have many ghosts, and they're just kind of doing their thing, and people sometimes do pick up on that. So it could be a variety of things. If she's got some activity in the house too. Again, without going in there and kind of properly investigating it, it's hard to say. Again, it could be residual. There could be something, this energy that keeps causing the door to open and shut, a refrigerator. Being there's that much, I'm kind of leaning towards you probably have an active ghost in there. And ghosts aren't necessarily stuck in one room. They can go outside. They can come inside. If there was some kind of tragedy on the property, well, that spirit could have been killed so fast. They don't know they're dead. They could be going through their daily routine, just doing stuff, paying no attention to the living, or they could be stuck there. We find on battlefields many soldiers stuck around to keep fighting the battle and helping, their fellow soldiers out there. So instead of going into the light, they stayed, and they're still there doing their thing. So variety of possibilities of what could be going on there.
That's one thing. It'd be, of course they wouldn't understand it, but could you imagine that would almost be like hell to be replaying, like a recorder, like a 10-second clip on a recording, just playing it over and over again, to be living that little clip over and over and over and never going into the light. And how is that something, I wonder if it's going to happen forever, or did they go to light someday, or that's the way it's going to be for them?
Well, with a residual haunting where the same thing tends to keep happening over and over, it's not I don't know if you want to call it a living spirit. I hate to say that, but a living spirit, a conscious spirit, it's not something that's an actual spirit. It's just like this energy imprint in the environment. So it's not even aware of itself. It's just a replay of an event that people are able to see, as opposed to if you have an actual ghost there that is conscious, it can communicate, it knows it's alive in a certain sense. Generally, they aren't quite stuck doing the same exact thing over and over. So they can have a sort of a lifestyle of their own where they're at in the space they're in. Now, some hauntings have been known to resolve themselves. The people, the spirit or whatever, do figure out eventually how to ascend, and they go on their own. Other times it takes a little bit of work. If you go into some thinking from physics, and a lot of spiritual, metaphysical people say that time is completely different when you're dead. So 100 years to us just might be seconds on the other side if they're there, just maybe like right now. And something interesting I noticed on a case, one of the first cases I worked with our medium Virginia, we went to a property that was owned by a doctor, and there used to be a research facility in his basement, and he was working on yellow fever. And he was believed to still be present at the home after he died. And we brought Virginia in, and she was picking him up in the bedroom on the second floor. And she told us this would be his bedroom we're in. He's pacing back and forth. He's describing that he's still working on yellow fever. he's not ready to go. He knows you're dead, but not ready to go. And he said to Virginia, "I don't have time for you guys right now. You have to go." And I said to her, that's an interesting statement. As a police officer, I'm thinking, if someone was in my bedroom, I'd be saying, "Who the hell are you guys in my house? Get out." I'd be freaking out. But he was not really paying attention to us, just saying, "I don't have time for you guys. I'm doing my thing here." And I said to her, why is that? And I said, what comes to mind for me is if you've ever had this really crazy dream. Let's, as an example, say you're driving a car that flies. So you're flying through the air in a car, and you have like 3 people in the car that you don't know at all. And you're not questioning, how's this car flying or who are these people? When you're in the dream, you're just going through the dream. And when you wake up, you look back and you're like, wow, that was really crazy. But you never question it in the dream. And I said to Virginia, is this kind of how some spirits might get locked into places, that they're just there at that particular moment in time going through it? And she's like, yes, that's exactly, how she sees it, that people get locked into this time. And there's no past or present really for them. It's just right now. So it doesn't seem like 100 years for them, even if they were stuck there. It's just right now.
Yeah, that would be so eerie, that to be in that situation. Now, any other, stories you can share with the listeners? I mean, I'm getting a lot of emails already through nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com about you already, loving you being on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One thing I will say, our team is very compassionate. Although we have a lot of retired troopers on our team and some other police officers when we started. We had 2 guys from our local FBI office, and we were very police heavy. But everybody was pretty compassionate. And I mentioned before that we even put skeptics on our team. One of the criteria we had for the skeptics, though, was they had to be open to help Virginia help the clients, even though they might not believe there was a ghost there at all. Our primary goal is to help the clients, and the skeptics that we have and have had are all fantastic. They have all said, okay, yeah, I don't really believe in ghosts, but, hey, let's say I'm wrong. There's no harm in trying to help somebody. So, at the end of the day, we help Virginia help them. However, she needs help. So they were open to that at least. And we try to bring everybody in from professional occupations, and we wanted to kind of show people that there are people that, not saying I have any great intelligence here, but I do have a professional persona that I've had to hold for 25 years, working with the public. So we wanted to show that there are, just average, regular people with a certain amount of professionalism that are going out there and can honestly give you our opinions on what we think, and that's helped a lot of people. Now, with the background we've had, it's opened up a lot for us. We've been able to investigate. We've been called in by several police departments, a town hall, and a borough building, because all these employees were witnessing stuff. We had cases where the police at one station would work a 3 to 11 shift and start back 7 to 3 the next day. So they would sleep at the city hall, and they were witnessing stuff. And all the police were afraid to go and sleep up on the second floor of this building. And, these are all very credible witnesses. But one of the great things coming from law enforcement that I had the opportunity to do is a friend of mine, Joe Hawk, was a canine handler in Maryland. And his dog was injured, and they had to retire him from police work. But Joe ended up moving back to Pennsylvania. And when he got here, we talked, and he also was on another paranormal group, but not currently with them. And, I invited him to join our team. And one day we got talking, saying, how interesting would it be to bring Ben, his canine, out on some cases where we can see if Ben would react in certain ways, because Ben was cross-trained in a lot of different things. One was human detection, and he was able to track people. So, we knew if Ben was alerting on a door that there was someone behind a door. And we had all these indicators that we set up and wanted to take him in to see how he would react in places where people were reporting hauntings or they were reporting their cats or dogs were acting very strange. And we have been on many cases, and he was a big dog. He was a big Czechoslovakian Shepherd, pure black. So for people who don't know what that is, it's basically a German Shepherd from Czechoslovakia. So Ben did certain things that we could count on. If it was a hot day, we knew he was going to be panting. So we could put Ben down in a stationary position on the floor and then watch his respiratory rate. Would he go from a relaxed position to alert? Would his panting stop? Ben was trained to never leave his handler. He was also a protection dog for the handler, so he never left the side without a command. So we can key off of all these different things. And we had many experiences where, as another example here, we were in a hallway of an old hospital where it was now a business. They were reporting hearing footsteps in the hallway up above their offices. So we went up in that hallway. We put Ben down in a neutral position. It was hot. He was panting. And we're all just in discussion, and Ben's looking around. Well, we actually started hearing footsteps come down the hallway. But just prior to us hearing that, probably about 2 to 3 seconds before we heard it, Ben went into an alert position, staring down the hallway, stopped panting, and keyed in on something. So we actually caught that on our recorders, and he obviously picked up on something before we did. And we had another case, the one in Upper Darby that I mentioned, that single house with the voodoo, was turned into a double block home. Ben was with us there. He was laying on the living room floor. Virginia had said, whoop, an energy's going up the stairs. Ben got up, ran up the stairs, took a quick right-hand turn, and slammed right into the wall. When we checked back with the owners, they said when it was a single house, that was an open hallway. So you used to be able to go up the stairs and take a right. So if a spirit was used to going upstairs and taking a right down the hallway, that's what probably happened, and Ben went up and slammed right into the wall, which is kind of unusual for a dog to do. But so it was just a fantastic experience working with a trained canine, and he was trained to go in all these different environments. So it wasn't like taking your pet in where they have to check out everything first and they're a little bit scared. But just a phenomenal experience working with him.
It would be. It reminds me, when my oldest daughter was probably about 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, I can't really remember, she had her imaginary friend, and it used to drive me and my wife crazy. She'd be sitting and talking to her friend all the time. We had like 3 cats, and the cats would be focusing on the direction she was talking to her imaginary friend. And, I didn't key on that. I just couldn't figure out why the cats would be staring off, the whole time she was talking. They weren't looking at my daughter. They were looking who she was talking to. And they were very alert. And, then it hit me, years later when I was talking to somebody else about it, maybe they could see what she was talking to.
One of the things we found by accident is one night we were out on a case, and I have a ultraviolet and infrared camcorder. And I had an infrared flashlight basically attached to this camcorder. And we were on a break, and we were in a dark room, so I took it off, and I'm bouncing the light just off my leg. And Ben started going nuts, and he was scratching at the floor. He was running around, and I'm like, Joe, what's he doing? And he's like, I don't know. And then it popped in my head. I'm like, is the light on? And I turned the light on, and you could see just a little red glow because, the human eye can't see infrared light. But I could tell the flashlight was on, and I'm like, wow, maybe he can actually see the light. So I flipped it back over, and, like if somebody takes a laser dot and gets a cat to chase it, that's kind of what I was doing. I was just, running the light over the floor, and sure enough, Ben could see the light and was chasing the light. So we checked with a university that has a veterinary training program and said, this is what happened. Can dogs see infrared light? And they said, yes, they can. Cats can see in infrared as well to some degree. So, most people think animals have these senses that humans don't and can sense energies we can't. And in this case, it seems to be true that they can see into the infrared light spectrum where humans can't. So in many cases, they may actually be seeing something that we're not.
Yeah.